Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's video I'm going to show you how I created this steampunk nautical altered frame. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the background. I started with a piece of black watercolor paper and I'm going to use this embossing folder to give it a texture. It's a wood grain texture. And now I'm going to add some color to the background. I'm going to start using a medium brown acrylic paint and I'm just brushing it over, and then I'm adding water because I want to lift some of that color and I want that color to sort of pick up all the texture that is on the paper. And now again I'm adding more water, and this time I'm using a tissue to sort of pick up the excess color. Now I'm going to be adding some white gesso to my background to bring out the texture even more. And what I'm doing is I'm taking away some of the excess paint on a tissue, so the color is very dry because I just really want the color to be on the raised areas of my background. And to finish the background, I'm going to be using Distress Oxide Spray in Speckled Egg. And again, I'm going to be adding it with a brush. And because the Distress Spray is quite liquid, I'm also wiping away some of the color on the tissue. Okay, so now I'm stenciling the frame. Now you might notice that the frame is already painted, and that's because a couple of things for this project I made off camera because I started it a long time ago and it was an unfinished project for a long time, but really the only thing that I did to the frame was painting it brown and adding a little bit of white gesso to sort of give a weathered wood look. And now again I'm just stenciling with white paint. I used two different stencils, both of them are from Stamperia. This one, I think it's from the Sealand collection, and this other one with the tubes and the gears is from Lady Vagabond. Obviously, the theme is both steampunk and nautical, so of course I used these two stencils, which I thought were quite fitting with the overall theme. The other thing I did off camera was the eye catcher, the octopus diver. But what I did is I just stamped the image onto a piece of cardstock with black ink, and then I added transparent embossing powder to it to give it a glossy effect. The stamp is also from Stamperia, and it's from the SeaWorld collection, I believe. Okay, so now I'm going to create the porthole. What I did is I just die cut the shape from some cardboard, and then I added these braids to create the rivets, and I painted the base in black gesso, and now I'm adding a medium brown, the same one that I used on the background paper. And basically we're going to create a rusty effect, and I find this brown to be perfect to create the base for the rusty effect. When I want to create that, I like to work in layers, so I don't like to add all the mediums all together and then paint them over. I like to do it step by step. And I added a little bit of water to my fresh paint because I wanted to lift some of that color. And now I'm adding a metallic copper color, obviously because rust tends to be orangey brown, and also because this paint is metallic, it's going to give me that sheen. And now while the paint is still wet, I'm adding some translucent embossing powder, and of course I am melting it. And while the embossing powder that's been melted is still hot, I'm adding more of it. This is going to add a gorgeous texture to the rusty effect. as you can see here. And I did it while the paint was wet, not only because, of course, I needed something to glue sort of the powder down, but also because by doing it this way, the powder becomes almost colored. Because you know the embossing powder is plastic, and so it might be challenging to color over it. In fact, it does act as a resist sometimes, but doing it like this allowed me to paint over it quite easily. Now adding this white paste. It's a coarse white paste and it's going to give me a rougher texture. And I'm focusing the application near the breads. And then I'm painting over it again with the brown. And again, I'm adding that metallic paint. And I'm kind of dry brushing it to sort of bring out the texture. And now I wanted to add some spots of oxidization. And so I added this light teal color in some sparse areas of the porthole. I focused a lot on the areas with the coarse white paste, but of course I also extended it. And then to finish it off, I again added the metallic copper paint because as I said before, when it comes to creating a rusty texture color, I like to work in layers. I like to add and take away and then add more. It's kind of a long process, but I enjoy doing it. And I think in the end, I had a really nice effect. You can see it here. I gave a little close up. And I think it looks fantastic. The embossing powder was a new technique that I just tried, and I'm definitely going to use it again. So now I'm adding some foam tape squares to the portal. I will be gluing it down on a piece of acetate. And of course, I want this piece to be quite dimensional, and that's why I used foam tape. And then, of course, I'm going to cut the excess off. And now I wanted to add something to the acetate. I'm adding some white splatter, some white spots, because obviously I wanted to make it look like it's been, it's a little dirty, a little ruined by time. And now this was a very old video of when I created the background that I used for the underwater scenery behind the octopus. This is a very old video that I filmed, I think, a year ago. And basically to create the background, I just used various distress sprays. I used spray stain in tumbled glass and uncharted mariner. Then I used speckled egg oxide spray, and I used phantom mist mica stain in the end. But you can see that for the project I only used the lower half of that paper because obviously it did look like an underwater scenery. And now again, I added some more foam tape to make it dimensional, and I'm going to glue down the porthole on top of that background, and then I'm going to, of course, cut the excess off. Okay, so now I'm going to assemble everything together. I'm adding some cardboard pieces to the backing of the frame, which obviously is going to be my support. And I've just used some scrap cardboard because this whole thing is going to be covered up, and I added quite a few layers because I wanted, again, my piece to be quite dimensional. And then once I was done, I glued down the background. Before I did though, I added that sort of ivory colored jute fabric. I wanted to replicate a fishing net. I didn't have something that looked exactly like a fishing net. This was the closest thing I had in my stash, but I really like how it looks, so that's why I decided to use it. And again, now I'm just assembling the pieces together. Now the octopus, as I said before, I did by just stamping, and I cut it out. Left it white because I liked it that way, and I did use some cardboard to make it very dimensional. And then I added the last two finishing touches to my frame, which is this cord, and I also knotted them in some kind of way, almost like a sailor knot. And I added it on two corners of the frame. So yeah, I am done with the frame. I originally wanted to add way more pieces and decorations, but I really loved how simple this looked, and I wanted all the elements to be quite visible, so I just decided to leave it this way. You know, I think sometimes even when you're doing vintage, less is more, and I'm giving you a little close-up of the finished piece. You can really see the beautiful rusty texture of the porthole. I really, really love how it looks. And this piece is very dimensional. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider liking, subscribing to my channel, leave a comment down below, let me know what you think. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!